What is unfolding now is far more than a routine alert or another dramatic headline that fades by morning. This is one of those moments when choices made quietly, far from public view, begin pushing their way into the open, carrying consequences that could jolt an entire region and send shockwaves far beyond it. Reports indicate that Donald Trump has turned away appeals coming from Oman, Bahrain, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and other regional players. These were not casual requests. They were attempts to slow the momentum, to pull events back from the edge before they tipped into something irreversible. Those efforts failed. Instead of de-escalation, alerts were issued and preparations accelerated. The signal being sent is stark and direct. Brace yourselves. Plans for an attack on Iran are moving forward, and the opportunity to stop them is rapidly slipping away. Within this charged environment, Trump is said to have confronted his own security advisors with visible frustration. The options laid out before him, according to these accounts, did not go far enough. Yes, the strikes could cripple Iranian military installations. Yes, they could tear apart key infrastructure. But in his assessment, that still fell short of victory. He reportedly made it clear that damaging bases or facilities was not the same as neutralizing Iran's leadership or breaking the system that governs the country. What he demanded instead was something far more sweeping, a strategy that would leave no refuge, no untouched sector, a blow so comprehensive it would shake Iran to its core. The words attributed to him are deeply unsettling. He is said to have warned that if even minimal harm came to him, the response would be absolute devastation across Iran, aimed not only at military targets but at ministers, commanders, and even the highest religious authorities. The intent described is not proportional retaliation, it is annihilation. Behind closed doors, those discussions appear to have reached a decisive end. Trump, by these accounts, believes his course is set. He intends to strike and sees no remaining barriers in his path. To underline that resolve, the United States has begun releasing carefully curated images meant to speak without words. One such image, shared by U.S. Central Command, shows F-15 fighter jets positioned in Jordan. This is more than a photograph. It is a message. It says the aircraft are in place, the crews are prepared, and the capability to act already exists. It is a visual warning to anyone still hoping that this escalation can be easily halted. What deepens the sense of alarm is that regional diplomacy has been active, not absent. Oman, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, none of them stood aside and watched quietly. Each attempted to intervene. Yet attempting does not mean succeeding. Qatar's prime minister publicly acknowledged that his country reached out to both Tehran and Washington, urging restraint from both sides. Those appeals, he said, were dismissed. His warning that followed was chilling in its clarity. If war erupts, it will not confine itself to the immediate participants. It will ignite a chain reaction that engulfs everyone. Oil prices will not creep upward. They will surge violently. Gas supplies will be disrupted. Capital will flee global markets. Investors will scramble for safe havens. Gold buying will spike as fear spreads. Housing markets could buckle under the strain. And beyond the financial chaos, a broader global crisis would begin unfolding, destabilizing societies far removed from the battlefield. His most haunting message was simple and brutal. Your destruction will not be yours alone. It will take all of us with it. This is not exaggeration. It is a reflection of just how tightly woven the global system has become. While these warnings echo through diplomatic corridors, the military posture on the ground continues to harden. The United States has repositioned its Air Force refueling tankers from Europe into the Middle East. Nearly 19 of these massive aircraft are now in place to sustain long-term air operations. This is not what a nation does when it is merely exploring options. This is what it does when it is preparing for an extended campaign. At the same time, Trump has pressed his national security team with increasing intensity. Symbolic gestures are no longer enough. He has demanded plans that deliver decisive results. Briefings reportedly covered the deployment of the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, advanced missile defense systems, THAAD batteries, Patriot systems, and a wide array of fighter jets. On paper, the scale looks overwhelming. Yet even within these briefings, advisors are said to have acknowledged an uncomfortable reality. While such force could inflict enormous damage inside Iran, fully dismantling the regime is far from guaranteed. That uncertainty is precisely what has fueled Trump's anger. He has brushed aside regional proposals, including those involving Saudi Arabia, and signaled that he no longer wants to hear calls for delay. Through both words and actions, the impression left is that the decision to strike is no longer under debate. Now widen the lens to see the regional danger taking shape. THAAD and Patriot defense systems are being positioned across the Middle East. American aircraft stationed in places like Jordan are on heightened alert. But if strikes are launched from these locations, Iran is unlikely to absorb them silently. Jordan itself could be drawn directly into the conflict. There should be no illusion that Iran lacks either the capability or the resolve to respond. Saudi Arabia has already stated that its territory will not be used as a launch point for attacks. But in the chaos of escalation, red lines can blur. What happens if those assurances are tested? What happens when decisions made in minutes override years of careful positioning? Consider Qatar as a case study. The U.S. military presence there exists because Qatar was promised protection. For years, American drones and operations tied to conflicts like Afghanistan have moved through the region under that understanding. Hosting U.S. forces was meant to guarantee security. Yet in a scenario where the region ignites, those assumptions face their harshest test. If strikes are launched, retaliation could follow swiftly, and the very bases meant to provide safety could become prime targets. Arab states may issue statements, warnings, and objections, but their leverage over a determined superpower is limited. The United States has long framed its role as one of preventing escalation and safeguarding allies. Now, that same military footprint could serve as the platform for war. And once the first strike lands, diplomatic language will lose its power. After that point, events will move on their own momentum. Adding yet another layer of volatility are the latest warnings emerging from Iran itself. Statements attributed to Iran's military leadership and its president have been direct and uncompromising. They have warned that if any harm comes to the Ayatollah, the response will be overwhelming. The imagery invoked speaks of fire, hell, and total retaliation against the United States. These are not offhand comments or rhetorical flourishes. They are deliberate signals, meant to deter and to declare that Iran believes it has both the means and the will to strike back. All of this points to a single unsettling conclusion. The region is standing at a threshold. Every movement, every decision, every refusal to step back tightens the tension further. That fragile moment does not bring calm with it. Instead, it sharpens tempers and hardens resolve. Reports suggest this phase has only deepened Trump's anger, not cooled it. From his perspective, being warned or threatened is intolerable, and every message of defiance seems to confirm his belief that pressing forward is the only option. Rather than slowing events, each statement, each image released to the public, and each visible troop movement feeds a cycle that grows more dangerous by the day. Both sides feel compelled to demonstrate strength. Both sides believe retreat would signal weakness. And trapped between these calculations are entire regions and global markets that will absorb the shock long before the first explosion ever appears on a screen. This is no longer just a military buildup unfolding quietly in the background. It is a collision of pride, fear, power, and miscalculation, all converging at once. The jets are on standby, not as symbols, but as tools waiting for a command. And from this point forward, the economic fallout stops being hypothetical. The surge in oil prices is no longer a distant possibility. It is an almost guaranteed outcome once the first strike occurs. There will be no mechanism capable of containing it. That understanding is already present inside Washington, even among those pushing hardest for action. Behind closed doors, Trump's own security advisors have repeatedly warned him that the kind of operation being prepared will exact a heavy toll on the United States itself. They have made one thing unmistakably clear. The idea that America could walk away untouched is a dangerous fantasy. Their internal assessments are blunt. Bases will come under attack. Assets will be lost. Casualties will happen. There is no scenario where everything unfolds neatly according to plan. Yet despite acknowledging those risks, the security establishment has still outlined what it considers the most viable course available. They argue that Iran's command centers, headquarters, and major military facilities can be targeted effectively. They insist that Iran's air defenses can be penetrated and that visible infrastructure can be dismantled under the weight of American firepower. On paper, the picture they paint is one of overwhelming force crippling Iran's exposed capabilities. But beneath that confidence lies deep unease, because two unresolved concerns continue to haunt every briefing. The first involves intelligence surrounding recent Russian military cargo deliveries into Iran. Reports indicate that advanced systems may have been transferred, technology designed to disrupt, confuse, or mislead incoming aircraft. The fear inside Washington is that American jets could be blinded, diverted, or forced into unexpected vulnerabilities mid-operation. After the recent 12-day conflict, Iran is also believed to have acquired additional capabilities not only from Russia but from China as well. How these systems will perform in an actual confrontation remains uncertain, but uncertainty itself is enough to inject serious anxiety into planning. This is no longer the Iran of decades ago. This is a state that has studied past encounters, adapted its defenses, and prepared specifically for this moment. The second concern cuts even deeper and cannot be dismissed with optimism. Even if American forces succeed in destroying Iranian bases above ground, most of Iran's missile strength is not sitting in plain view. Much of it is buried far beneath the surface. Production facilities, storage sites, and launch systems are hidden underground, reinforced at depths where conventional bunker-buster weapons may prove insufficient. These installations were engineered with survival in mind, built to withstand an initial wave and preserve the ability to retaliate. That reality fuels Washington's worst nightmare, because if Iran finds even a narrow window to strike back, it will not hesitate. There is no ambiguity on that point. Once the first wave of attacks lands on Iranian territory, Tehran will consider itself fully justified in responding with maximum force. Modern surveillance, satellite networks, and advanced communications have already revealed just how exposed even powerful militaries can be. Iran has absorbed previous blows, studied them, and emerged more determined, not less. It is not retreating under pressure. It is bracing for escalation. Inside Iran itself, the situation is just as combustible. The protest movements now unfolding are unlike anything seen before. This is not a familiar cycle of unrest that rises and fades. In terms of scale, intensity, and danger, it surpasses every prior internal challenge in Iran's modern history. Even the 1979 revolution, as transformative as it was, did not occur under conditions like these. At that time, Iran was not facing a coordinated external alignment involving the United States, Israel, European powers, and multiple regional actors simultaneously. Today, that alignment exists. Israel is openly prepared. Several Muslim nations face mounting pressure to cooperate. Jordan is positioned. Europe signals readiness. The level of international involvement now dwarfs anything seen in that earlier era. That is precisely why this moment is so terrifying. The most dangerous phase has arrived, and uncertainty dominates every calculation. Ordinary people feel the tension because no one knows what tomorrow will bring. And despite the aggressive rhetoric projected outward, even the United States is deeply uneasy. Trump's public bravado should not be mistaken for calm confidence. Behind the scenes, concern is real and pervasive, but concern has not translated into restraint. The momentum continues forward. The decision in practical terms has already been made. The attack will happen, regardless of the cost. Trump's approach follows a familiar pattern. When he moves toward war, he frames it with the same justifications time and again. Intelligence warnings surface. Claims of imminent danger appear. Accusations emerge that the other side is calling for death and destruction. We have seen this narrative before. He will say chants were heard, that red lines were crossed, that action became unavoidable. Yet history shows how often such claims unravel under scrutiny. Similar assertions were made in the past, only for the truth to surface later. Even Israel has, at various moments, acknowledged it was not fully prepared. And yet now, Israel insists it can withstand hundreds of missiles and urges that events move forward. This time, however, Iran is not following the expected script. It is not backing down. No matter what reassurances are offered or what confidence is projected, Tehran has made its own decision. It is prepared to go all the way. That is why Iranian officials repeat the same warning without variation. If the supreme leader is harmed, restraint ends. This is not symbolic language meant for headlines. It is a declaration of a boundary that Iran believes justifies total retaliation. The contrast in rhetoric is striking. American and Israeli statements often list multiple targets, spreading threats across presidents, commanders, intelligence chiefs, and military leaders. Iran, by contrast, returns again and again to a single focal point, one line that must not be crossed. And Trump, in response, has mirrored that fixation. He has openly stated that if anything happens to him, Iran will be destroyed from edge to edge and its highest leadership targeted. The reality is that even if nothing happens to him personally, the trajectory already points toward the same destination. So the question becomes unavoidable. Once this war begins, does anyone truly believe it will simply stop on command? Here is the truth many are unwilling to confront. The countries that may suffer the most are the Muslim nations that choose to stand beside the United States in this conflict. Iran is not just another state actor. Its people are deeply emotional, intensely nationalistic, and fiercely opposed to Israel. Yes, there is frustration with leadership. Yes, there are protests, economic pain, inflation, and anger driven by sanctions. But internal dissent should never be mistaken for acceptance of foreign attack. When it comes to Israel, that line does not bend. Even Israeli intelligence assessments quietly acknowledge this. They recognize that while sanctions and economic pressure have fueled unrest, they have also intensified anti-Israel sentiment. And here, the hypocrisy becomes impossible to ignore. Sanctions crush Iran's currency, suffocate daily life, and push people into the streets. Then those same voices claim to speak out of concern for the Iranian people. If sanctions were lifted, if economic pressure eased, much of that unrest would dissipate. But that option is never seriously pursued. Punishment continues, and war is presented as concern. Now, all diplomatic appeals have been swept aside. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others have been told their pleas no longer matter. Allies have been informed. The machinery is moving. The strike is coming. And as this reality settles in, one final truth must be faced. This is not a movie, and there is no clean ending waiting at the end of the credits. Once the first missile launches, control dissolves. The region will be reshaped, markets will fracture, and alliances will be tested in ways never seen before. History will remember this moment not for the speeches delivered beforehand, but for the silence that followed when no one could stop what came next. Before you go, stay connected to NextGen-Fox. Share this message, think deeply about it, and make your voice heard, because moments like this are not just observed. They are lived, and the consequences belong to all of us.